Whoa! So the Justice League screenwriter is pissed off. Well, let's see what he has to say here. It says the Argo Oscar winner is tired of being hated by the haters, and he despises what happened to his DC films too. Well, well, well. Chris Terrio is not pulling any punches anymore. For 5 years, the Oscar-winning screenwriter of Argo kept his mouth shut about his work on the DC films Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Justice League, even as scorn from critics and fans exacerbated already painful behind-the-scenes memories. Worst of all, he agreed with many of their complaints. He described the films that Warner Bros. Released to the theaters in 2016 and 2017 as incoherent misfires, undermined by corporate meddling, poor franchise planning, and tone-deaf decisions that prioritized costly visual effects sequences over coherent storytelling. Terrio believes that Zack Snyder's director cuts of both movies are much stronger, if still imperfect movies, an overall vindication of their work together. In an exclusive, wide-ranging interview, the screenwriter said that hashtag Snyder Cut of Justice League, recently released as a 4-hour-plus event on HBO Max, righted a kind of cinematic wrong perpetuated by studio leadership that has now almost entirely moved on from Warner Bros. Okay, it says here the 2017 theatrical cut was an act of vandalism, Terrio said. Zack may be too much of a gentleman to say that, but I am not. The studio did not provide any comment on his remarks. Terrio first joined the DC universe to rewrite an existing Batman v Superman script because its Batman actor, the director of Argo, had qualms about the project. I think the studio brought me in to appease Ben Affleck because they thought, okay, well, we have this movie star who is reluctant about doing this, so why don't we bring in this guy, Terrio said. The screenwriter was frank about trying to make sense of the film's warring heroes, turning their fight into a metaphor for a divided America, while attempting to fix elements he too found nonsensical or offensive. Studio officials then demanded that 30 minutes be removed from the theatrical cut, most likely because shorter run times meant more daily screenings, often resulting in higher box office earnings. Terrio said that act sabotaged the narrative. If you took 30 minutes out of Argo as they were from Batman v Superman, it would make zero sense at all. Critics would say, what a lazy screenplay, because the characters don't have motivations, and it's not coherent, Terrio said. And I would agree with them. Even the title of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice was a disaster, he said, that primed audiences to roll their eyes at the film well before its release. You know, I wasn't a fan of the title. Something about it, I don't know, maybe some camp behind it or a little hokey or extra. Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Oh, the Justice League's gonna come out. I don't know, something about it was a little too in your face. Although I still love the film, especially the uncut one. Terrio hoped Justice League would be a better experience. He was very wrong. After watching Joss Whedon's version of the film, Terrio was so disgusted that he explored taking his name off of the movie. Especially galling to him was the sidelining of Ray Fisher's tragic hero, Cyborg, whose arc the actor himself had helped craft. Fisher has been outspoken for months about his experience making Justice League following years of silence. Now, Terrio is doing the same. He said he bottled up his feelings about the theatrical cuts to avoid hurting their casts and crew. Now that Snyder and Terrio's preferred version of the films are available to the public, the screenwriter is finally opening up about how it all went wrong in the first place. My. So, let's see here. So right here is the full interview. Right there, which is extremely long. Let me see here. Boom. So, it says here. So I'm so happy and relieved that all these thousands of artists and craftspeople all over the world finally can have their work seen by the public. And all of the work that Zach and the actors put into this can now be seen. It's sort of a gift that we got from HBO Max because it wouldn't have been possible a few years ago. So they asked him, can you point out something specific that you are glad gets a showcase in the new version? Willem Dafoe's performance in the Aquaman story. Obviously, the characters Iris West, played by Kiera C. Clemens in the Flash rescue sequence, and most centrally Ray Fisher's performance as Cyborg. It was always the heart of the film to me and just meant so much to me personally because so much of my heart and life were put into that story that is the thing about this version of Justice League, that none of it was done cynically or as a money grab or as an attempt to sell Happy Meal toys. It really was personal for me and Zach for many years. And for many actors. It says here, is it true that you were banned from the Justice League set? He was banned from the set? I wouldn't say that I was banned. The studio attitude was, well, take it from here. We'll take it from here. I was frankly shocked when I saw the Snyder Cut and saw how much of the original script was shot with some small revisions. They shot the script, and I understand that sometimes that was a battle for Zach. How did you feel about the version that Joss Whedon assembled? When those personal touches were removed from the film in 2017, I was silent because I couldn't really say anything, but of course it hurt. All that remained was a dinosaur skeleton of what had been a great lumbering beast. It might have been a big, unruly beast, and obviously it's 4 hours, and the movie was maximalist, and it's operatic, and sure, it's a little crazy, but I think the movie is crazy in the best way. Can we start at the beginning with Zach? You worked on Batman v Superman. Can I assume that was a good experience, at least with him, since you're signed on to another movie? Ben Affleck called and said that he was working on the film, which was a Superman film, in which he was going to play Batman. So he asked if I would read the script and consider doing a rewrite. They asked if I would do some character work. So it was already determined and storyboarded that Batman was going to be trying to kill Superman and that Batman was going to have gone down the dark road. He was branding criminals, and it had a certain dark element that was non-negotiable and already in the story. What did Ben Affleck want you to do? My job was to create a story and tone really in which Batman could be that person, and in which two heroes could get to the point where they're fighting to the death. What was your approach? I came into it thinking the only way that this could work is as a fever dream or as a revenge tragedy. I thought, how do we create a story in which Bruce Wayne is traumatized by the war of Krypton coming to Earth, and in which he enters into this kind of madness? He becomes Captain Ahab, and he won't listen to saner voices like Alfred, for example, who are telling him to just see reason. He's a man possessed. So the film was dark by nature. As I worked on the movie, it seemed to me that it was a snapshot of what I was feeling on the ground in the country, which maybe didn't become apparent until the madness and division that came from the last presidency. I thought this superhero movie could be about getting into our worst natures, but then coming out of them into a redemption. What did you want to avoid? I didn't want to make a sitcom joke that Batman and Superman are trying to kill each other. If I'm going to work on this movie, it's going to be dark and operatic. It's going to be uncomfortable. Zach and I come from very different approaches to filmmaking, but I immediately liked him because he isn't cynical and he wears his heart on his sleeve. I'm cynical enough for any room that I enter into. He is Batman. How did things develop from there? I wrote drafts of Batman v Superman movie, which wasn't called Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice by me. Actually, his said Batman/Superman, so Batman Superman movie. I did not name the script. In fact, I found out what the movie was called along with the rest of the world on the internet. I was not consulted on the title of the film, and I was surprised as anyone. I would not have named it Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Was that Zach's choice? I don't know exactly who named it, but I suspect it was the studio, and I suspect it was marketing, to be honest with you. It might have been the first step toward creating ill will for the film. I suspect that putting the words Batman and Superman into the title had some marketing component to it. I think you're right that the title did rub people the wrong way. I heard it and I thought it just sounds self-important and clueless in a way, tone deaf. The intention of the film was to do something interesting and dark and complex. Not quite as Las Vegas bust 'em up WWE matches, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Yeah, see what I mean? It's like too like, you know what I mean? This Sunday, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice for the WWE title. It's gonna be a slobber knocker. How do you feel about the version of Batman v Superman that was first released? I was proud of the script when I completed it, but it turns out that when you remove the 30 minutes that give the characters motivation for the climax, the film just doesn't work. As we learned from the two versions of Justice League, you can't skip on the characters. And I think the audience will give a shit about the effects. The stuff was later restored in the extended version. I guess it's called I don't know. It's just a dash there. The Ultimate version remastered and released on HBO Max this March. So this house of cards had been built in order to motivate the clash between America's two favorite heroes. Made no sense at all. And that was what happened with Batman and Superman. The movie was always going to be dark. There was always going to be people who just didn't want to see that version of a comic book world. And I get that. But what hurt was the criticism that the script was not coherent. Because when I turned in the script to the studio, which they, by all accounts, were happy with, it made sense. What was your relationship with Zach? Good. I have nothing whatsoever bad to say about Zach. He has a skill set that I do not have as a visualist, and he has a contagious excitement that when you describe a scene, he almost can't contain himself, and he just wants to draw it or paint it. Zach never for a second turned back on me or doubted my work. After Batman, Superman, many of my Hollywood friends just stopped talking to me because they sort of thought that somehow I was complicit in this very public failure of a studio film. You learn pretty quickly who your real friends are and who your air kiss Hollywood friends are. Zach could not have been more supportive and never stopped believing that together we were going to create this big, epic DC world. Well, I, my friend, am a very big fan of your ultimate version, the extended version of, Batman v Superman. So And I think most fans, even though it was divisive, most fans did like it more than did not like it. How did you feel when the journey ended prematurely with Justice League upheaval? I went into such a depression when the film wasn't taken away and rewritten. But I didn't even feel entitled to be depressed because Zach and Debbie were dealing with their family tragedy. Measured against that, losing the film that you wrote seems like nothing at all. But it did hurt. It hurts to think that I cared so much of these characters, about these characters, and worked on nothing else for a very long time. Do you feel like the title and the cuts for length were made it harder for people to appreciate things that did work and bad? I'm sure. Before I even read his answer, I'm sure. That's exactly right. The audience has to know that they're in good hands. The minute that you lose them from a story point of view, they lose the desire to look at it generously. Once the critics decide a movie is incoherent, it's just a pile-on. And then they attack everything. There's a line at the beginning of the film where a warlord says to Lois Lane, "They didn't tell me that the interview was with a lady." And Lois replies, "I'm not a lady, I'm a journalist." So one reviewer held up this line as proof positive of my stupidity and my inability to write Lois or write at all. Well, the character of Lois in the movie was inspired by the journalist Marie Colvin, who was, of course, killed in Syria. I didn't know that. She was one of the most intrepid journalists who ever lived, in my opinion. And there's a story in Vanity Fair by Marie Brenner. And the line that Lois says is almost exactly the line that was in the article where Chechen warlord said he wouldn't shake her hand because she was a woman. Marie Colvin replied, "There is no woman in this room, only a journalist." So that line was my tribute to her. But then in the pile-on, a line like that was held as proof positive that I didn't understand either women or journalists. And that I was a shitty writer. I actually thought that was a good line. I did, because I know that women sometimes do not like to be looked at as like this, like the way the dude, he's like, "They did not tell me that the interview was with a lady." Like he was all like, almost like he was trying to hit on her. She was letting him know, "I got business to do. I'm not a lady, I'm a journalist." And I get that. I worked with a woman in the car industry selling cars, and she told me that when she shakes guys' hands, she shakes it hard. She doesn't do it femininely. She shakes it as hard as she can to let them know she means business, and she's attractive. So she doesn't want them to think that it's about them maybe buying a car and hitting on and possibly getting a girlfriend. Like, no, I'm here to make money and sell you a car. So I get where they came from with that. I didn't think that was a bad line. Anyway, that was the climate in which the film dropped. Anything and everything was attacked because the reviewers questioned the motives behind the film. And to some extent, I don't blame them. The marketing promised this mindless fight movie, and any attempt to make something real or complicated was just met with anger and vitriol because the audience just didn't assume good intentions. Another complaint that the Snyder films were too grim and heavy. Do you feel blamed for that? The studio seemed to take this position after Batman v Superman, that my writing was too dark and that this was their problem. But what they didn't mention was that, for example, in the draft of Batman v Superman script that WB had developed, which was the draft I was handed when I joined the project, Batman was not only branding criminals with a Bat brand, he also ended the movie by branding Lex Luthor. Oh, shit, I wish he had have, personally. The ending point was a point over which I explicitly went to the mat with the studio again and again. I argued that Batman cannot end the movie continuing this behavior, which amounted to torture, because then the movie would be endorsing what he did. I don't know that, but Lex definitely deserved it. What was your argument to them? It's one thing if Batman begins the movie as a dark version of himself, whom we don't recognize, but he has to see the error of his ways. I understand that. And remember, his better self in the course of the movie, by the end of the movie, he needs to be the Batman we know, and he has to be ready to go and create the Justice League. Otherwise, I said, what was the point? What else did you push back on? I'm the one who had been saying that we can't make a joke out of Superman raining hell upon black African Muslim characters in the desert. As Lois promises that Superman is not going to go easy on them because they punched her. But somehow I'm the person with the dark sensibility. I wanted to say I've been saving you from yourselves. I've been working with the director to bring a voice of conscience and sanity to the almost perversely dark film you've been developing for years. But I'm the problem here. Did you feel you were able to significantly change that Africa scene with Superman for the better? I removed the punch of Lois for one thing. Yeah, because I was thinking, I don't think she got punched. Just think about the optics of that. I was able to add material to the film and ask the movie to grapple with that battle meant, so that I didn't seem like a casual, so that it didn't seem like a casual scene of Superman intervening in this way without reckoning with the consequences of intervention. I placed that in context of a moral question. Superman says, think of what could have happened. And Lois says, think of what did. The sequence takes place in a fictional African country called Nairobi, and there's a manipulation happening there with Lex Luthor and his American mercenaries trying to provoke and conflict and frame Superman. After Superman rescues Lois, the film shows the people of the region truly suffering in the crossfire. Without sounding too political, it's not lost on me that much like a drone, Superman sort of comes out of nowhere from the sky and vanquishes the enemies and then flies off with no consequences. That may not have been an angle on Superman that people wanted to see and wanted to think about. Did you also add the scene with the character Kahina Ziri, who was a witness of the battle, testifying about the aftermath? Yeah, that one was added afterwards. I added the scene, he came down and then came fire. The story that she tells, at least in the script, is that he destabilized the entire region, and then government forces came in and slaughtered the village. Since they're the optics that already were in the movie, I thought that was my job to ask the questions and say, what do we actually mean by this? Okay, so I'm going to end it there because I'll probably be reading a half hour longer, but I see where he's coming from. I'm going to finish the rest of this on my own, and I'm going to post a link in the description box for you guys. And it's just like, wow. Like, I could see, man, when you're a writer and people think you wrote what they put on the screen. That reminds me of, like, as an actor, when you do a particular scene a particular way and you know it was your best take, and the director or editor or whatever uses a different take, and you're like, why did you use that take? I did the other one better. Or you'll shoot different scenes, and certain scenes are cut out that you were in that really might have helped the movie, and you're just like, and then people see it. And then I can get where he's coming from. If people are like, oh, I didn't like this, or, you know what I mean? It's like, well, I didn't. There were like 5 takes of that, and I said it right this time. I don't know why he used this take. You know what I mean? But anyway, post comments down below. Let me know what you all think about this. And if you enjoyed my reading and view on what I read, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Woo!